Hello, welcome to the second episode of Take Scuba. My name is Travis Ice, and today we're going to find out which of these two tanks will drain faster based on a hose rupture. It's been a common question in diving as to what will cause more problems if it ruptures, a high pressure hose or a low pressure hose. A high pressure hose is a hose that has to do with your pressure gauge. It runs directly to the tank itself. Now a low pressure has to do with your second stages, and it runs through the regulator. To solve this, I'm going to simulate a pressure or a failure of both different kinds. Okay, on this tank and this regulator, I have removed the high pressure hose, but I haven't plugged it. So this simulates a high pressure hose bursting. On this tank, we have the low pressure hose removed, which simulates a low pressure hose bursting. Okay, I'm going to turn these tanks on at the same time. I'm going to place my very high-tech Taco Bell napkins over each of them. The napkins will fly up because of the escaping air, so you'll be able to see which one will eventually drain faster. Now these tanks are both identical 80 cubic feet. They are about 1,500 psi, around that. They've been out here overnight in the same environment, so their temperature is similar. I've equalized them. They have equal pressure in both of them, both of their tanks. And these two regulators are both Decor 360s. They are similar design. The only real difference between these tanks and regulators is these two valves. Okay, this is a special J valve I use whenever I go on my my vintage diving. This is a regular K valve. So that's the only real difference. I'm going to open these valves as quickly as I can. I might get one open first rather than the other. So I'm going to say that if these two tanks drain at about, if we have a 10 or 5 second difference, there's no real difference because it could be the valve differences. Okay. There's also the question of two individual tanks. The tanks themselves may be different because when they're made, this tank might have 80.01 cubic feet. This one might have 79.9 cubic feet. Okay, so those big differences I can't really judge for. So that's why we have the 5 to 10 second rule. Now, if one of these tanks runs out of air and the other one still goes for like 30 seconds, that's a pretty clear winner. Okay. So with that in mind, here we go. Let's do this. I'm going to put my earplugs in because it's going to be rather loud. You might want to turn the volume down on your computer. Hopefully nothing goes wrong because I don't want to waste another two tanks. You'll also notice I've buried these two in the ground because I don't want them to be falling over themselves or flying anywhere, and this is the safest way to do it. Okay. I can't really hear myself now, so let's do this. All right, in 3, 2, 1. This one's a little bit loose, not quite as much. The high pressure one's still going. As you can see, this napkin isn't quite being as well behaved as this one. There's still a little bit coming out of this tank. Very small amount though, very small amount. Okay, we can see that this one is basically done. There's nothing left. It's a small amount left. This one's still going pretty strong. Alright, and that's about 5 seconds. That's about 10. We have a little bit in this one, a very small amount. You can't even tell, it's basically done. This guy is still going strong though. I'm going to go ahead and turn this tank off because I want to save the air. Woo, it still goes pretty far. Look at that. Alright. Okay, so clearly the low pressure has won. Okay, it's lost its air much faster than the high pressure one has. This is due, I believe, personally, to the fact that this low pressure is a low pressure, but it's very high volume, okay? If you take apart, or if you take a hose out or a plug out of a low pressure port, you'll see it's a very large opening, okay? It's about I'd say 1/4 of an inch across. In a high pressure opening though, you can barely even see the hole where the high pressure comes out of. That's because in a high pressure system, okay, like on your pressure gauge, you don't get a lot of pressure fluctuation because you're not breathing off of it. In this, in a low pressure, you're breathing off of your second stage, so you actually have to have a very fast volume change because you're breathing so much. That was kind of unexpected with the napkin flying off, so I hope we got a good laugh out of that. I sure did. This is not something you should try at home. For one thing, the noise is very loud. For another thing, it's not very good for your tanks because this is very rapidly. Wow, total brain fart. Because the air is leaving so rapidly, the metal in this tank is going to shift very quickly, which is not good for scuba tanks. Scuba tanks should actually be breathed off of, which lowers their pressure very slowly, and so the metal has time to shift correctly. It's also bad because this air is expanding so quickly in either of these tanks. We're going to get condensation, okay, on the inside of the tanks. I'm doing it to these bad boys because their visual inspection is coming up and they need to be cleaned anyway. But if you do this at home and you don't bother cleaning the tank out afterwards, you're going to get some pretty bad condensation, which means you get water inside these tanks. And water in the tanks is always a bad thing. Okay, so again, don't try this at home. I'm doing this because, again, these tanks are close to being inspected, and because I want to show you what the result is without having you take any of the risk, okay? I hope this is pretty informative. Again, this is the low pressure hose that burst lost pressure much faster than this high pressure hose, okay? So this isn't to say that a high pressure hose breaking isn't a big deal. It is a big deal. But I would rather have a low pressure hose have failure and start to lose, well, I'd rather have a high pressure hose have a failure and begin to lose air than a low pressure hose, okay? Again, that's what we did. Hope you guys enjoyed it because our next video is going to be me jumping into a rather cold pool and explaining to you about hypothermia. Again, this is One Take Scuba. I'm Travis Ice. If you want to learn more about this, want to learn more about me and scuba diving, you can visit my website. Okay, it's paradigmscuba.com, or you can email me a question if you'd like. If you want to see other experiments or such things, you can email me at psiborg1812@gmail.com. Alright, that's today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I sure did. It was pretty interesting. I hope you see us again next time. And if I don't put a video up by Christmas, hope you have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Bye-bye.